Everybody, welcome back to the Five Pines Podcast. I'm your host, Jamie A.B. So today's video, I just want you to think before we get into it, okay? Let's picture this. Picture that you're a mayor of a town, okay? It's May. You look outside. You've just done the flowers for the town. Things are starting to bloom. Everything's going great. And you get handed a notice that in the Santa display downtown that you did for Christmas, there was no menorahs. There was no menorahs included, and you find out that you're being sued by a group of people who are offended that you did not include menorahs, okay? Even though there's no Christianity nativity scene, no other holidays being celebrated at the time, nothing. It was just a generic Christmas setup, okay? And you say, well, that's kind of weird because there's no other representation of Christianity or anything going on, so why would we go out of our way to include menorahs? And then you find out that if you don't do this, you're going to be sued into oblivion, because that's what today's scenario when I first heard today's scenario, that's what first popped into my head. Okay, I'm like, okay, so can you imagine being in trouble for not celebrating Christmas properly? And not only that, 6 months later, like, to be sued for not flying a pride flag seems a bit counterproductive to me. So let's watch this short clip and then we'll get into it.
Start with this extraordinary story, and I promise you, we are not making this up. A Canadian town has been fined $10,000 for refusing to celebrate Pride Month. And the town's councillors who voted against Pride Month have been ordered to undergo human rights training. The saga began when a gay rights group asked the Emo Council, that's the name of the town, not a descriptor of the council, they asked the Emo Council in Ontario to proclaim June as Pride Month and to fly a pride flag. Now, they asked the council to agree that sexual orientations and diverse gender identities should be celebrated. Well, the council voted 3-2 against the motion. The mayor, during the break, observed that flags aren't flown for straight people, so he didn't see why they should be flown for gay people. Well, the gay rights group took exception to this and went straight to the Ontario Human Rights Tribunal. And get this, it resulted in a 5-day hearing, paid for, of course, by taxpayers. Here's the result of the hearing. In a decision handed down last week, the Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario ruled that Emo, its mayor, and 2 of its councillors had violated the Ontario Human Rights Code by refusing to proclaim June as Pride Month. The town was also cited for failing to fly an LGBTQ2, the 2 stands for two-spirited, rainbow flag, despite the fact they didn't have an official flagpole. Now, as I said, the council was fined $10,000. That money went to the Pride group. The mayor was personally fined $5,000, also sent to the Pride group. And those who voted against Pride Month were ordered to undergo human rights training and to provide written proof that they had done the training within 30 days to the Pride group. Now, this thing has got problems everywhere, but just off the top of my head, firstly, Caleb and Liz, no one has the right to be celebrated. You might celebrate yourself, but you don't have the right to demand I or anyone else celebrate.
First of all, I like to say, when will this insanity stop? Okay? I want to start off by saying we cannot force people into anything, whether that be, thinking our sexuality is valid. Okay? Not going to happen. When it comes to thinking our religion is valid, you're never going to make everybody believe in God, believe in the same thing. You're never going to be able to do it. And suing people into celebrating your sexuality is the most privileged thing I have ever heard. So let's get into it. I want to start off by saying that I was somebody who went to Million Man March, and I have been somebody who has attended Pride with my child. Okay? Before Trudeau was in, and I would say about 2 years, maybe 1 year in, Prides were very chill. very chill time. Unless you were in Toronto, then it was probably pretty debaucherous. But from what I saw, it was mainly churches and local businesses that were queer. Churches being like, we welcome you at church, no matter what. And then it was local businesses who were owned by queer individuals, okay? And then all of a sudden it became this wild circus, okay? There was more nudity, more protesters. It was just a bit crazy, okay? So that's when I decided to not take my child to it anymore, because it just didn't feel like it was child friendly whatsoever. And since then, it's only gone more and more and more, adult-like. Still being advertised as family friendly though, so I digress. I'm not sure who they think they're helping, Borderland Pride, which is this group who is suing. By the way, I looked into it. On the Human Rights Tribunal, the only thing that they could cite as hate speech or that they committed a hate crime or something was that the man said, well, we don't celebrate straight people, so why would we do an entire month for anybody else? If we don't do it for one group, why would we do it for another? And to be honest, I think he has a point. Okay, I used to think that that was a homophobic thing to say, but I actually don't think it is at all, because I supported this entire thing thinking that we were going to be celebrating people who had disabilities for an entire month and putting resources towards other different communities. We barely even have people participating in Every Child Matters, okay? What does it say about our country if you can sue an entire town for not celebrating your sexuality? Okay, and it's not only that. If I was emo, the town of emo, I wouldn't even know what flag to put up, because y'all change it every single year. Every single year, it is completely different since like 2020. I looked at Borderland Pride's Facebook page. It is riddled with harassing and degrading remarks about the town of emo, the homophobes, which, by the way, you're not homophobic if you don't think that your sexuality or your identity is defined by queer theory, because queer theory, by the way, is the most homophobic thing in the world, because it seeks to dismantle terms such as gay, straight, and lesbian. Okay? That's absurd. And we have gotten to a point where we've convinced people that if you don't believe in queer theory and you don't believe what they've implemented in the schools, then you hate gay people. That is such a dangerous message. All of these people talk about mis and disinformation. They are the crusaders of spreading mis and disinformation when it comes to stuff. They were the ones saying that we at the Million Man March hated people who were gay. That's not the case. That's not what it was. I was there. I was, live. I was reporting on what was actually going on. There were so many of us parents who were concerned because, some of us have kids in the community that we've seen struggle by, focusing on their sexuality for some reason for an entire month, and the negative impacts that SOGI might have that don't even have to do with homophobia, but rather teaching kids too early what homophobia is, because you've brought them up in a nice, neutral home where it was just normal, and then all of a sudden you have people telling them, hey, people hate your uncles because they're together. It's not good. It's not always good. And they've done a perfect thing here where they have convinced the community that they exist because of this theory, and that if people don't believe in that theory, which is all of the gender stuff and all of biology doesn't exist, blah blah blah, and they've told them it's fact. It's not fact. Okay, it's very Marxist ideology. Okay, and it's not doing any service to the queer community whatsoever. Trans people are being appropriated left, right, and center. Okay, people are taking the trans identity and using it to do awful things, and backed by our law, because we have awful self-ID laws in Canada. Okay, and then we have women. I have seen women who have been abused by somebody in a shelter and been torn to shreds because they didn't use the right pronouns. Guys, this is so, it's what makes me upset the most is that it's absurd. Okay, it's absurd. We never cared about bathrooms at all before because the goal of transitioning was to appear as the opposite sex. It was rude to ask people's pronouns. You would never ask a trans person's pronouns pre 2017 because it would be disrespectful as shit. Because there used to be such a process that you would go through to make sure and rule out all of the other things. And they got rid of it and just affirm. Okay? And if you don't believe any of that, then you're phobic, you're all of the phobics, you're all of the different things. You know, the things that they say about people like Blair White, or even people like Eden, the doll, who isn't even as brutal as fucking Blair White is horrible. It's horrendous. The things that they call her, like, you hate yourself, you're transphobic, you're this, you're that. It's horrendous. It has become a cult mob mentality, and we need to be snapped back into reality, okay? Because before Trudeau, we had one girl, five gays on our airwaves, okay? And as the pride community, we should recognize, like, hey, you know, maybe we could not focus on us right now. Maybe we could be focusing on the disabled community. Like, maybe we don't need to make everything about our sexualities because we are not defined by our sexuality. And that is the whole point of where we were pre-Trudeau. I hate to make this about it, but it's exactly the culture that he has created, is that we're not allowed to there have been 150 plus churches burned, okay? They don't care about that, but they care that pride flags aren't being flown during the month of June. Why would you need a certain town to even declare a pride month? What do you mean? Isn't that not Canadian-wide pride season? What are these things that these people are talking about, okay? And then you see it in the news. This is a hateful town, and all it is misinformation, a misunderstanding, and when you actually read into it, it's not homophobic at all. It's actually just logic and common sense, and these people don't even have a flagpole to fly this. Why wouldn't these people come in, if they're so concerned about this town being so homophobic, why don't you come in and have a fucking picnic? This is what I'm talking about. This is why people are so sick and tired of this stuff. It's not because they're homophobic, and I know that they do their damn well best to convince you that everybody who disagrees with this stuff is homophobic, transphobic, blah, 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 blah. But some of us simply come from a time where we valued equality rather than equity. Okay? I'm just saying it's not working. All right? Anyways, touch grass today. Like and subscribe, because there's more of these rants where this came from. Okay? Thanks so much, and have a great day.